Your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit, is revving up to dissect one of the most game-changing shifts in North American trade. The long-standing fuel pipeline between Canada and the United States has hit a roadblock, and now a new powerhouse buyer has stepped up: China. With fresh tariffs throwing a wrench into Canada-US relations, the Great White North is recalibrating its engine and looking east. Buckle up as we break down the 7 major developments fueling this seismic shift in Canada's oil trade. Number 7. The Trade War Ignition: How U.S. Tariffs Set the Wheels in Motion. In early 2025, Washington dropped the hammer with a 25% tariff on Canadian imports, citing border security and fentanyl concerns. But for Canada, this was more than a speed bump. It was a full-blown detour. Adding insult to injury, a 10% surcharge on Canadian energy exports disrupted a well-oiled partnership that had long powered both economies. Ottawa wasted no time retaliating, slapping $30 billion in counter-tariffs on U.S. staples, bourbon, textiles, and home appliances. Suddenly, cross-border commerce wasn't just business, it was a battleground. While American policymakers framed the move as a national security measure, critics called it economic strong-arming. The abrupt tariff rollout left no room for negotiation, forcing Canada's energy sector to find a new buyer fast. Even as the diplomatic back-and-forth continues, one thing is clear: the U.S. and Canada are no longer idling in neutral. The gears of global trade are shifting, and a new destination is on the horizon. Number 6. Full throttle toward Asia: Canada's new fuel partner. With North American trade lanes tightening, Canada is flooring it toward Asian markets. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, completed in 2024, has turbocharged the nation's export potential, cranking capacity up to 890,000 barrels per day. That means more Canadian crude is now flowing toward China, Japan, and South Korea instead of American refineries. China, always eager to diversify its oil supply, wasted no time snagging shipments from Canada. By late 2024, Rongsheng Petrochemical had secured multiple crude deals, signaling Beijing's increasing reliance on Canadian energy. While this shift offers immediate benefits, it also introduces new risks, including economic dependence on a nation known for leveraging trade as a geopolitical bargaining chip. Beyond the international chessboard, Canada's internal economy is feeling the heat too. Oil-rich Alberta is celebrating the boom, but manufacturing hubs like Ontario and Quebec face supply chain uncertainty. Canada's trade strategy is evolving at full speed, but the road ahead remains uncertain. Number 5. Economic whiplash: the ripple effect across Canadian industries. The US-Canada trade war didn't just rattle oil exports, it sent shockwaves through multiple industries. For sectors reliant on seamless cross-border commerce, the tariffs were a financial wrecking ball. The auto industry took a direct hit. With Ontario and Quebec home to Canada's largest automotive manufacturing plants, increased material costs and supply chain hiccups caused production slowdowns and higher consumer prices. Suddenly, American-made components became pricier, and Canadian factories had to scramble for new suppliers. Then there's the oil sector, a longtime staple of Canada's economy. The pivot to Asia sparked investment uncertainty, as institutional backers worried about the risks of doing business with China. Unlike past oil crises, triggered by price crashes or environmental regulations, this trade war created a long-term structural shift, making it harder for investors to predict stability. Stock valuations in Canada's energy sector have fluctuated wildly, reflecting the uncertainty. While some see opportunity in diversification, others warn of a rough road ahead. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. Now let's shift gears and steer towards our next point, number 4. Political pressure mounts. Can Trudeau handle the heat? The tariff war didn't just shake up trade, it put Trudeau's leadership in the hot seat. Initially hailed as a defender of Canadian sovereignty, his retaliatory tariffs won public favor. But as the economic toll mounts, opposition voices are growing louder. A recent Angus Reid poll found that 57% of Canadians fear long-term damage from the trade dispute, with 34% concerned about rising consumer prices. Critics argue that Trudeau should have taken a softer stance to maintain economic stability, while others believe Canada should go all in on trade diversification. At the same time, the idea of strengthening ties with China is drawing both interest and skepticism. While some policymakers see Beijing as a vital counterbalance to American dominance, others warn against the risks of economic entanglement. After all, China has a long track record of using trade relationships for political leverage. For Canada, the road ahead is full of twists and turns. Should it embrace China's open wallet or continue navigating the bumpy ride with the US? The answer could define its economic future for decades. Number 3. The Green Dilemma: Canada's energy versus climate goals. Canada has long marketed itself as a climate-conscious nation, yet its expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure tells a different story. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion has supercharged the nation's ability to export oil, but at what cost? While the economic benefits are undeniable, environmentalists argue that increased carbon emissions from oil extraction and export contradict Canada's climate commitments. The Trudeau administration introduced a nationwide carbon tax and emissions reduction initiatives to offset the environmental impact, but critics say it's too little, too late. Meanwhile, China, the world's largest greenhouse gas emitter, is fueling demand for Canadian crude, further clouding Canada's sustainability image. Balancing energy profits with green policies is proving to be a high-speed balancing act. Can Canada maintain its environmental credibility while ramping up fossil fuel exports? Or is this the ultimate example of saying one thing and doing another? Number 2. U.S. retaliation: how Washington is fighting back. The U.S. isn't sitting idle while Canada shifts gears toward Asia. The Trump administration has ramped up strategic countermeasures to curb Canada's growing oil independence, including plans to restrict Canadian crude access to U.S. refineries. Beyond direct trade actions, Washington is exerting influence on international regulators, lobbying organizations like the World Trade Organization, WTO, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to scrutinize Canada's shift toward Chinese partnerships. The argument? Canada's increased reliance on China could introduce economic vulnerabilities into North American trade. Back home, U.S. lawmakers are pushing for legislation that could make Canadian crude less attractive to American refiners by imposing new environmental and taxation regulations. This strategy has sparked debate within the U.S. energy sector as American refiners, historically reliant on Canadian oil, worry about higher costs and supply shortages. To further tighten the grip, U.S. intelligence agencies are ramping up economic surveillance on Canada's energy dealings with China, citing concerns about technology transfers in pipeline security, refining innovations, and energy storage. For Canada, this creates a complex challenge: how to expand its trade autonomy without igniting a full-scale economic standoff with its largest historical trading partner. Will Canada hold its ground, or will U.S. pressure force a course correction? Number 1. Shifting gears: Canada's next economic play. Canada is no longer just reacting to U.S. tariffs, it is actively re-engineering its global trade future. The move toward Asian markets isn't just about selling oil, it's about reshaping Canada's economic autonomy. With Washington tightening trade barriers, Canada must go beyond short-term fixes. The next phase is about building long-term stability, expanding energy infrastructure, securing stronger multilateral agreements, and diversifying its economy beyond crude oil exports. Yet the path forward is complex. Closer ties with China, Japan, and South Korea bring economic opportunity, but also political risks. Western allies are watching closely, and any misstep could strain existing trade partnerships. This is a defining moment for Canada. Will it establish itself as a resilient global player, or will political pressures from the US and China force it back into economic dependence? One thing is certain: the old trade playbook no longer applies. Conclusion: the next chapter in Canada's global trade race. Canada's trade shift is a high-stakes gamble. Expanding energy exports to Asia diversifies its economy, But new geopolitical pressures are forcing difficult choices. To succeed, Canada must strategically manage trade relationships, ensuring economic stability without alienating key allies. The challenge is not just about choosing between the US and China, it's about securing a sustainable, independent trade future. What's your take? Is Canada's pivot to Asia a smart long-term move, or does it create new vulnerabilities? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love to hear from you. For the latest updates on the automotive world and more in-depth analysis, subscribe to Piston Pundit and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching and see you next time.